This is Trinity Storm here and you are watching 15th part of Naruto the Unknown Dojutsu. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Meanwhile. Wow, it took us forever to get here. Jiraiya said as he and his student, Naruto Uzumaki, walked through the city streets. The two have been traveling for a little more than a week, and this city is Tsunade's last reported location, according to the older man's spies. Throughout the days, Jiraiya did nothing but search, research, and search before returning to his research. Naruto seemed unaffected by his master's antics, instead focusing solely on the mission, because he was training to perform a really awesome jutsu, in his words. Even though Jiraiya was his teacher prior to the Chunin exams, all they did was work on improving and strengthening Naruto's techniques, which included all of the Uchtengan techniques he knew. They didn't go through many new techniques, owing to Naruto's lack of elemental affinities. As a result, the blonde was taking his training very seriously because this was the first jutsu he was going to learn from his teacher. Furthermore, when he saw Jiraiya perform the technique, he was immediately drawn to its destructive effect, and once mastered, he could come up with various ways to upgrade it. "Would you please stop talking, Ero Sennin?" Naruto let out a groan. "You were fortunate that I followed through on your plan to simply fly in the air for us to travel faster. I'm not the type of person to let someone else be carried by Mika. And now I'm wasting my chakra on Meteor. You are aware that she is a phoenix, correct?" Jiraiya inquired rhetorically. "I could have carried you while she carried me. Our combined weights would have had no effect on her. I refuse to be carried like a child," exclaimed Naruto, as a tick mark appeared on his head, causing Jiraiya to softly chuckle. After Naruto had calmed down, the boy continued their little conversation. "In any case, why are we in this city? Did your spies happen to spot Granny Tsunade in this dump?" "Yes, this is the location where she was last seen. And, given the size of the place, I'm guessing she's at a nearby casino or something." He started to stroke his chin as Naruto raised an eyebrow at him. "Casino? Is she a gambler or something?" Jiraiya then burst out laughing, wiping a tear of joy from his eye. "Oh, if you only knew, brat. Anyway, to answer your question, she does enjoy gambling. However, she may go down in history as the worst gambler ever. Don't tell her, but she can't rely on her own good fortune to save her life. She earned a reputation for losing almost every bet she ever placed." Naruto gently whistled. "Damn, what a bad player she is. Does this mean she never wins any of her bets?" he inquired, intrigued. "I didn't say that," the older gentleman shrugged. "I mean, there were very few times when she won in her gambling, but in all the years we've been teammates, something bad always happens when she wins." He then began to laugh again, and after a few seconds, he continued on. "I recall the time when we were on a mission together. I assured our team that it would not rain, and I was firm in my assertion. Then Tsunade said something different, and that's when we started arguing about it. We ultimately decided to settle it with a wager. If I win, she will take me out on a date. If she wins, I'm not going to do any research for the next 2 months. Do you want to find out what happened next?" "Sure." Naruto replied with a grin. "You did win, right? Following that, you two went on a date." Based on how he described Tsunade Senju earlier, he was confident that his teacher had won that bet. "I lost," he replied bluntly, raising both eyebrows in surprise. However, something worse happened later in the mission. The boy's surprised expression changed to one of curiosity. "During the rain, she began gloating about how women could finally survive for a little longer without me perving on them, but then we were ambushed by a swarm of Omegakure ninjas. But we had to work hard to get away from their clutches." "So that's what you meant when you said something bad always happens?" Jiraiya only nodded as Naruto pointed out. "That's bad news for her. I'm curious what would happen if I bet against her." Gaki, don't push your luck. We're here for business, not pleasure. The pervert shot, causing Naruto to abandon any plans he had to mock Tsunade Senju. Besides, when we return to the village, don't you think you can place as many bets as you want with Tsunade? Naruto gave a nod. Good. Now that that's settled, let's get started. Where do you think she's hiding? I believe you can make a good guess, Gaki. At this, Naruto raised an eyebrow, but his eyes widened in surprise when he realized they were standing outside a small casino. Jiraiya laughed a little before continuing on inside the building while the blonde stood there gawking. Hey, wait! Yelled Naruto as he noticed his teacher go inside. When he arrived, he noticed the pervert looking around for something before turning around to face the boy. Gaki, stay here. He told his student, looking to the left and right. You know, I saw you in a few bingo books in the last town we visited. You're quite popular in the shinobi community right now. If anyone recognizes you, which they almost certainly will, it will cause problems not only for those people, but also for us. So just let me figure it out for this one, okay? Isn't it better if you don't draw attention? Naruto nodded and walked over to a nearby bench inside the establishment. Just hurry, I'm hungry, the blonde said as he crossed his arms and sat down. He looked to his left and noticed that someone was sitting on the other side of the bench. Naruto took a deep breath and turned his head away from the man so he wouldn't see his face. I hope we find that granny soon. Who knows what's going on in the village right now? He mused. You just want to spend more alone time with your mate, don't you? Kurama asked, signaling his presence. Naruto blushed as a result of his unexpected remark. So you really want to be with her? I knew it. Well, I think you and that pervert are almost there. And I have a feeling she's hiding somewhere in this town. It's a city, not a town. Naruto responded calmly, having overcome his embarrassment. What makes you think she's here? Have you sensed anything so far? He asked, hoping. Not really, but I suppose I could make a wild guess. This made the blonde sigh deeply. Come on, Kit, have some faith. It hasn't been a year since you and your teacher went on this mission together. Naruto rolled his eyes as he heard the Biju speak to him. Besides, I'm not sure what you're upset about. You can fly, so your walking problem is solved. What exactly are you on about? I understand, okay? Naruto was certain. I'm just not used to using meteor on a regular basis.
I mean, I use meteor after every other place we visit.
Because of how frequently I use it these days, it exhausts me every time. And Mika is carrying Arrow Sennin, so I can't really be the one she's carrying for the time being. You just can't let your pride down, can you? Teased Kurama, but Naruto remained silent, prompting the Kyuubi to smirk. You said you don't want to be carried around like a child, correct? That is the price you will have to pay, Kit. Instead of simply giving in and allowing yourself to be held by your teacher, you prioritize your own pride over it. I don't want to be treated like a mindless baby, she says. Naruto retorted, a tick mark on his forehead. Is there anything else you can do besides tease me over and over? Your jokes are getting old, which is why I wasn't moved by your earlier remark about me and Hinata. If you keep doing nothing but tease me, you won't have anyone to talk to because I'll just ignore you at any attempt you make. Alright, relax. Kurama said, soothing his host before clearing his throat to regain his seriousness. Back to what I was going to ask you earlier. What are you going to do if Tsunade refuses to return to the village? According to what I know and have heard from various villagers and officials, she left the village out of depression and sadness. They say she lost faith in the leaf because she took the deaths of her loved ones too hard. That's nonsense. I lost Ka-san, but look at me. I'm still in the village and a Chunin elite. Unless you're saying she has no other family, in which case I might understand what she went through. It's extremely difficult to move on after the death of someone you care about, especially if that person was a member of your own family. That is why I am asking you now, Kit. What are your plans if she refuses? I'm guessing you won't butt in right away and start trash talking with her. One thing is certain. I will not engage in trash talking. If she asks for it, she will receive it. He then leaned back against the bench on which he was sitting. I'll go to any length to get her back. Sasuke and Kakashi-sensei need her. Not to mention Lee still has the injuries from their fight. If that granny is the only one who can heal them, I'll do whatever it takes to get her back. As much as it pains me to see someone else succeed me as Hokage, I know it's for the best. You are aware that you will be pitted against the first Hokage's granddaughter, Hashirama Senju, right? If the two of you fight, she will not be an easy opponent. And, being of the Senju lineage, I can tell you that her endurance outlasts the time you can keep your dojutsu up and running. What are your plans then? Of course I'm aware of that. But I have a plan, the boy replied with his own smirk. Do you mind sharing it with me? Inquired a perplexed Kurama. There were times when Naruto acted like a complete idiot who does things without thinking, but there were also times when the blonde Uzumaki proved to be a good and devious strategist. Sure. The boy had some hilarious moments when he acted like an idiot, but the Biju enjoyed seeing him become more serious and composed all of a sudden. Kurama acted as if it were a switch. When Naruto played the failing but amusing Joker, it meant he was testing his opponent's strength. However, when Naruto begins to act more serious and mature, it indicates that he has been challenged. This was demonstrated during Naruto's fight against Neji and Sasuke, in which he nearly lost but was able to fully recover and win. Furthermore, Naruto didn't even need Kurama's assistance that time. Before listening to the blonde's explanation, the tailed beast told himself, this kid's a goldmine. He can become serious and mature when he wants to. In Konoha, Hinata Hyuga was eating her lunch quietly at Ichiraku Ramen. She chose Naruto's favorite type of food, miso ramen, and she had to admit, she now understood why Naruto loved to eat and eat at Ichiraku's. Hinata had just finished her daily training with her father watching, and she had shown consistent improvement all day. She had also reconciled with Neji in the last few days, and the latter had agreed to assist with Hinata's training on occasion at Haishi's request. She insisted at first that Neji not be forced to do anything he didn't want to do, knowing how much her cousin despised the clan's ruling family. However, the Hyuga prodigy continued with their training sessions, claiming that it was an act of redemption after the girl's father confronted him about the truth behind the death of Hisashi Hyuga, Neji's father, and also because Naruto's words about fate during their battle in the exams got into her head. She was content with her current situation. She had not only reconciled with her father, but she had also reconciled with her cousin. Because she was the only Chunin on her team, she still went on missions with them, the most recent one being yesterday, when they had to take out a group of thugs who were threatening to attack the nearby village. But she had the impression that something was missing. Something you've seen before. Hinata came to a halt in the middle of taking another bite of the delectable noodles. Something's not right, she thought to herself as she reinserted the chopsticks into her bowl. It feels like something is missing. She was dead on. While the previous days had been interesting and enjoyable for the normally shy Hyuga, she didn't feel like herself right now. It was as if something was telling her that something was missing from her daily life. Unfortunately, she had no idea what it was, or she would have already found a solution. Don't you miss him? The sudden voice made the Hyuga squeak in her seat as she looked up to see who had just spoken. Ayame was looking at Hinata with the same bright smile she always gave Naruto. You do miss Naruto-kun, don't you? She said it again, but this time in a joking tone. Hinata first looked to her side before tightly closing her eyes and rapidly nodding. Ayame continued on after seeing that the girl had answered her question. Don't worry, you're not the only one here who misses him. What exactly do you mean, Ayame-san? Hinata inquired, wondering who else, besides herself, would miss her boyfriend's presence. I, for one, miss that little knucklehead, she exclaimed, smiling. You know, this place has gotten a lot livelier since he started eating here. To be honest, I think of him as a little brother. Now that he's been on a mission for who knows how long, there haven't been as many smiles as there used to be. Naruto's smiles, kuns, and unwavering dedication to becoming the village's Hokage always brighten my day. I'd love to see him as Hokage one day, and then me and my father would cook him all the ramen he wants. That's very kind of you, Ayame-san, Hinata said with a smile before continuing to eat her food. I can see why Naruto-kun enjoys eating here so much. Your food is delicious here. I might return here tomorrow. That is something you don't often hear from a clan heiress. She paused for a moment, looking at Hinata first before continuing. However, thank you. Naruto is our most loyal customer because he has eaten here since he was a child. Dad considers him to be his own son, which explains why I see him as a little brother at times. He constantly tells the two of us about you, always saying how lucky he is to have met someone who accepts him for who he is. Hinata blushed bright red for a moment before taking a deep breath and flashing another smile as an image of a grinning Naruto appeared in her mind. Would you take a look at that? Hinata, it appears that your friends have come to see you. Before hearing a familiar voice from behind her, the Hyuga heiress raised an eyebrow. Hello, Hinata. How are you doing? Hinata turned around to see if it was the girl she had predicted. Sakura-san? Ino-san? She asked, seeing Ino Yamanaka and Sakura Haruno standing behind her, smiling. What exactly are you doing here? Me and Forehead were planning to go shopping for new clothes when we noticed you eating here. Ino commented as she and Sakura sat on opposite sides of the Hyuga heiress. So, Hinata, what brings you here? Are you having lunch? Hinata nodded, prompting Ino to smirk. Is Naruto's ramen obsession rubbing off on you? Hinata blushed as a result of her abrupt remark, and she abruptly stopped eating. Come on, we all know how much that jerk likes ramen, and we also know you're into him, so spill it. Did he pass on his ramen obsession to you? I just started eating today, she admitted, twiddling her fingers, unsure how to respond properly. Oh, well, at least that's a sign. By the way, Sakura, the blonde-haired girl said to her best friend. Where has that idiot gone? I haven't seen him in almost a week. And knowing him, he should be out there playing practical jokes on everyone. Naruto is currently on a mission, Ino, the pinkette replied. He and his sensei, the Toad Sanin Jiraiya-sama, were sent by Sandaime-sama to find his chosen successor as the village's new Hokage. They've been gone for more than a week. How do you know that? He actually said, goodbye, the day before he left. Sakura replied with a smile. I was visiting Sasuke-kun in the hospital when he appeared out of nowhere. Ino then appeared to be lost in her own thoughts for a moment before returning a sly smile to Hinata. Wait a second, Hinata. Are you eating here because you miss your Naruto-kun? She teased, leaning in closer to Hinata's ear. The Hyuga didn't respond. Rather, her expression did. She felt like she was about to pass out, but she knew she had to be strong for herself. It's okay, Hinata. You don't need to be embarrassed, assured the blonde-haired girl, patting Hinata on the back to emphasize her point. In fact, you should go ahead and make your move on him right now. That's enough, Ino. Can't you see that Hinata is about to die of embarrassment as a result of your actions? Sakura chastised her friend, which only made Yamanaka laugh. I'm just having a good time, Forehead. She paused for a moment after that, contemplating something. In fact, now that I mention it, Naruto appears to be different than before. Sakura raised an eyebrow when she heard this. Didn't you notice how cool and badass he looked when he fought Gaara of the Sand? When that happened, I believe I saw him as a completely different person. He didn't seem like the same old dunderhead we remembered from the academy. Not only that, but he looked cool while flying in the air, she admitted, blushing slightly. You too, you know. If he keeps not acting like an idiot, I think I'll fall for that blonde idiot. No. Mine, Naruto-kun. Hinata's scream surprised Sakura and Ino because it was completely out of character for her. She normally stutters and is shy around others, but she mustered the courage to scream. What really caught them off guard was her sudden declaration about Naruto. Hinata widened her eyes as she realized what she had just done, before quickly covering her mouth with her hands as she blushed uncontrollably. She pressed her lips together, not wanting to hear any teasing from the two other kunoichi sitting beside her. Wow, Hinata just blurted it out loud. Sakura muttered in her head. How did you end up? She shifted her gaze to the white-eyed girl. Normally, you're shy and bothered all the time, but now you just shout out loud that Naruto is yours. Have you gotten over your shyness or something? Or are you simply in a good mood today? She waited for Hinata's response, but all she got was silence until Ino's laugh saved the Hyuga from further embarrassment. Oh, Sakura, let's just leave her alone. Ino stated as she patted Hinata's head and rose from her seat. Who knew the shy and sweet Hinata Hyuga could also be quite possessive and a little bold when it comes to her love life. I'm looking forward to Naruto's return and seeing how your relationship develops from there. But remember to be more forthright and courageous once you do. Forehead and I will be rooting for you. Are you sure, Sakura? Pinkette shook her head, trying to shake herself out of her trance. Why yeah, that's cool. She returned her attention to Hinata, who was still closing her eyes and blushing as bright as a tomato. Sakura felt a pang of pity for her friend and decided to act quickly before the Hyuga's situation deteriorated further. Well, you know what, Ino? I just realized something. We need to get going or else someone else will get their hands on the really cute dress I saw a few days ago. At this point, Ino was raising an eyebrow at Sakura's sudden statement. So come on and let's go. She hopped out of her seat and grabbed the blonde's hand before walking outside, the latter looking perplexed the entire time. I'm sorry, Hinata. Sakura apologized. But I think you'll have to finish that ramen on your own. We need to get our shopping done today. Hinata finally opened her eyes and sighed in relief as she heard their footsteps becoming softer and softer, while also thanking Sakura inwardly for saving her skin back there. She wasn't ready to reveal her love life just yet, not without Naruto. She sees the boy as motivation, and his mere presence gives her enough determination to face her challenges despite suffering many losses. When Naruto returns from his mission, they might be able to tell their genin friends what's really going on between the two of them and dispel any further rumors and stories about them. She smiled to herself as she took a few deep breaths, knowing she had gotten herself out of that dangerous situation. So, what's the real story between you and Naruto-kun? Hinata's eyes widened as she realized it was Ayame who was asking. Hinata flinched as she noticed the brunette's large smirk on her face. No. She mumbled to herself. Jiraiya and Naruto are there. Naruto fell asleep while still sitting on the bench he had discovered earlier. It was only fair because he and Jiraiya had gotten up really early in the morning and using his meteor while he was still sleepy had depleted a lot of his reserves. He'd been feeling sleepy since they arrived in town, and what he wouldn't give for some rest, even if it was just a quick nap, which is why he was sleeping right now. He was lucky he wasn't lying down on the bench and was sleeping in a sitting position, or he'd be in big trouble. Hello, Gaki. We should get going, I just found he paused when he noticed Naruto was sleeping. Jiraiya furrowed his brows before gently nudging the boy in an attempt to wake him up. Hey, Gaki. He said quietly enough for only himself and Naruto to hear. After about a half minute, Naruto still wasn't awake. He eventually sighed, indicating that staying in the casino and attempting to wake Naruto up would be futile. "You owe me for this one, Gaki." He grumbled to himself as he slung Naruto over his shoulder and led them out of the building. He began looking to the left and right as soon as he stepped out of the casino, recalling something one of the people gambling back there had told him. "Let's see. One guy said she and Tsunade were going to the big castle in this city. Now where is it?" He wondered, before turning his head to a random resident on the other side of the street and walking over to where he was. "Excuse me, where is the castle in this city?" he asked, perplexed. "Castle?" The man replied, puzzled for a moment before his face lit up. "Oh, you're referring to the Hiragizawa castle?" Jiraiya reluctantly nodded, unsure if that was the one he was looking for, but any castle would suffice for the time being. "You just have to go down that street," he said, pointing to a wide road to his left that connected to the main street. "Then you'll have to take the first right turn, then the next left. A few walks after that, you'll reach Hiragizawa Castle," he said with a smile, prompting the pervert to smile back. "Say, is that young man okay?" "He looks out of it," he said, pointing to Naruto, who was sleeping on Jiraiya's shoulder. "Oh, don't worry about him," the Sannin said, waving his hand. "He just woke up really early in the morning and we went for a jog after breakfast, so it took a toll on him. But don't worry, he'll wake up soon. So, if you don't mind, let's get started." With that, Jiraiya dashed towards the street where the man had pointed, leaving the latter with a puzzled expression. Jiraiya exhaled a sigh of relief and wiped the sweat from his brow as soon as he arrived. Phew, that was close, he thought to himself as he continued on his way. He had to flee in order to prevent the man from seeing Naruto earlier. His student and his exploits during Suna and Otto's invasion of Konoha had captured the attention of nearly every shinobi out there, and if he was even recognized by a single person in this city, Tsunade might hear about it and eventually leave, which he didn't want to happen and would do anything to prevent, as it would only prolong this game of cat and mouse between them. Jiraiya arrived at Hiragizawa Castle after following the path described to him by the man earlier. That is, the former location. His eyes widened as he noticed all of the debris and rubble scattered about. He gently shifted Naruto from his shoulder to a nearby wall that had not been destroyed by the collapsed castle's debris. After that, he quickly looked around, hoping to see Tsunade, but no one else was there besides the two. He didn't even detect any other chakra signatures in the area. Damn it. We were too late. He cursed. It appears that Tsunade has already passed through here. But did she notice this heap of rubble? Or did this happen after she left? He began to stroke his chin until an idea came to him. So Orochimaru was the first to approach her. Who else could have done this but him? The Akatsuki are too high profile to simply attack a city like this. And since he's crippled as a result of what Naruto did to him, he'll naturally seek assistance from Tsunade. I mean, who else can help him but her? He began sniffing the air as if he had enhanced senses. And this place stinks like a snake. Hey, Ero Sennin, a voice from beside the older man called out. Jiraiya turned to see Naruto yawning and rubbing the back of his head. Whither are we? Aren't we? No, aren't you supposed to be looking for Granny Tsunade at the casino? The boy began to walk towards his teacher, but when he turned his head to the right, he saw the collapsed castle on the ground, along with all of its debris and broken walls. Who the hell did this? Someone must be experiencing serious rage issues around here. Who do you think could be behind this? Jiraiya asked, smirking at his student. Naruto paused for a moment, scratching his chin in the process. About a half-minute later, his eyes widened and he looked up at Jiraiya, who appeared to be nodding in response to the blonde's alleged question based on the expressions on his face. Do you really believe the snake bastard is in this city? If he is, why don't we kick his $1 or something? That would teach him not to mess with us in the future. Tsunade is our priority right now, not Orochimaru. And, to answer your first question, he is, of course, present in this location. Do you remember what you did to him? Remember how you took away all of the chakra in his arms? Tsunade is arguably the greatest medical ninja the world has to offer, so it's no surprise that Orochimaru wants her to heal him. I'm not sure if she's already healed him, but we need to find her regardless. But, since we're too late, we might as well spend the night here and resume our search tomorrow, since you appear to be out of it right now. Actually, I'm fine now, Naruto stated flatly, stretching his arms out a little. So, Ero Sennin, let us just keep looking. Jiraiya groaned. Even if you were feeling well right now, nothing will change. I'll have to contact my spies again for any new information on Tsunade's whereabouts, got it? We're not leaving until we get some new leads, got it? It would be a complete waste of time. He looked at Naruto, who quickly nodded. After that, he crossed his arms. So, what are your plans for the time being? We're not going to get information from my spies overnight, so we should find something to do while we wait. Do you have any suggestions? Naruto rubbed his chin for a few seconds before returning his gaze to his teacher. How about I show you how I'm doing with the Rasengan so far? He asked, to which Jiraiya shrugged. Okay, then. Ero Sennin, hurry up. Let's go somewhere far away because I'm about to demonstrate how much I've improved in the last week. Jiraiya chuckled softly after his remark, Naruto's optimism reminding him of Kushina. The boy had been training non-stop for the past few days, wanting to show the older man that he could do it without waiting the 3 years required by the Yondaime Hokage to fully master the technique. Indeed, while Jiraiya was out doing his research and looking for Tsunade, Naruto was out training in a secluded area in every town or village they passed. So far, he had completed the first step of the technique and was currently working on the second. A few minutes later, the two found themselves in an area densely forested near the city's outskirts, far from any suspicious people. Jiraiya sat on the ground, leaning against a tree branch, with Naruto in front of him. Okay, Gaki, he said as he threw a small water balloon at the blonde, who caught it with his right hand. Let's go over everything again. Show me how you do the first step before moving on to the second. The user must first learn to spin their chakra in multiple directions at the same time in order to perform the Rasengan. The technique's performer can practice this step with a water balloon, and the step is complete when the balloon bursts. For this step, the user must know which direction their body naturally spins its chakra, and Jiraiya told Naruto that he was a right rotation type, but during the first days of his training, he was only spinning the chakra inside the balloon in one direction, so it didn't burst every time. Alright, time to get serious, said Naruto as he took the balloon in his left hand and concentrated his chakra in his right. Here I come. He then began to apply his chakra to the balloon repeatedly with his right hand, like a cat playing with a ball of yarn. HRRAAAA. He screamed as he increased the speed with which he applied his chakra, and then he finally stopped and watched as the balloon popped, causing the water inside it to blast out in all directions, soaking him. Good job, Gaki. You still got it, he said to the boy in his thoughts. So he still hasn't done it with a single hand? He wondered, recalling Naruto's water balloon burst. Well, that's fine. At least he found a way to do it. To be honest, if he had tried it with just one arm, it might have taken him longer. Anyway, time to see if he did his homework correctly, he thought before hurling a rubber ball at his student, who again caught it with his right hand. Now attempt the second step. Remember that the goal of this step is to increase the volume and density of chakra in the ball. This is not the same as the balloon, Gaki. You must make that ball explode like an explosive tag, but it won't be easy because it is much harder and tougher than a balloon. I hope you picked up on that over the last week. Ero Sennin, I got it. Keep an eye on me. Although the pervert laughed at Naruto's nickname for him, he watched to see if he would win this time. He has only seen 2 of Naruto's many attempts to do the second step, both of which were unsuccessful, and no doubt all the other times were as well. Let's do this. The blonde exclaimed as he began applying chakra to the rubber ball while focusing his mind on a few specific faces, unknowingly adding more power and density to his own chakra with what he was doing. Gigi. Kakashi-sensei. Ero Sennin. Sasuke Teme. Sakura-chan. Ka-san. Hina-chan. Everyone who matters to me. HRRRAAAA. He exclaimed once more as he ceased applying chakra to the ball. The rubber object in his hand began to inflate, similar to the water balloon earlier, until it couldn't take it any longer, causing it to explode with the air inside it blowing the 2 of them away a few centimeters. Jiraiya's eyes widened for a moment as he witnessed what had occurred, before he smirked and laughed silently, realizing how powerful Naruto's chakra could be when concentrated and focused. Feeling the aftereffects of expending a lot of chakra on the rubber ball, the blonde boy knelt and panted slightly before looking up at Jiraiya when he heard someone clapping his hands. Gaki, congratulations. You passed the second examination. As he stopped clapping his hands, the Sannin said. Tell me how you increased the power of your chakra. You appeared to be concentrating hard on something earlier, which caused you to send even more powerful chakra to the ball than before. As a result, the air inside it pushed you and me away for a few inches, indicating that the chakra you gave it is already stronger. So, what exactly is your secret? Naruto first stood up before he rubbed the back of his head in confusion. I didn't really feel like my chakra was getting stronger or anything. But I focused my mind on a few important people in my life and kept telling myself that I needed to get stronger so that no one could harm them. And then I felt the ball explode? I think? Following his explanation, he began hitting himself in the head. What kind of justification is that? I had no idea what was going on. Stupidity, 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 stupidity. How about some positive reinforcement? Jiraiya thought to himself as he laughed at his student. Not the best idea, but definitely a good backup for someone with unstable emotions like him. He cleared his throat after his little conclusion, causing Naruto to stop hitting himself and look the older man in the eye. So, now that you've completed the second step, do you want to take a short break or proceed to the third step? I must warn you, however, that the third step is by far the most difficult of the 3, but once you've mastered it, you'll be able to perform the Rasengan flawlessly. So, what do you think, eh? Let us proceed to the third step, Ero Sennin. It's not my style to take a break when I'm so close. Naruto interjected enthusiastically. Come on. I know I'm getting closer to mastering that technique. Jiraiya sighed and scratched his head before shrugging in defeat. Alright, since you asked for it. He took his small backpack and reached inside it, pulling out a simple, regular balloon. He stood up and walked over to Naruto before handing him the balloon. The boy looked at his sensei, puzzled, but accepted it nonetheless. Gaki, pay attention. The user must combine the first 2 steps of the Rasengan into a contained sphere for the third step. In other words, you must encase the rotating, powerful chakra within an imaginary sphere. However, keep in mind that this is the most difficult step to complete of the 3. You haven't gotten it if the balloon on your hand pops or moves in any way. But keep in mind the first 2 steps. You must still make your chakra spin and become more concentrated and powerful, but you must ensure that it does not exceed the contained shape. Do you understand? I think so, Naruto muttered as he looked down at the ground. The Sannin sat down again and rested his back against the tree trunk behind him. So, why don't you give it a shot? Don't be concerned if you fail it. It's unavoidable. And I've got a lot more balloons in my bag. Naruto exhaled deeply and placed the balloon in his left hand. Here we go with nothing. Gritting his teeth as he began to apply the chakra to the balloon, concentrating his chakra on his right hand before making it stronger and more dense than before. Jiraiya's eyes widened slightly a few moments later because his student was actually containing his powerful chakra in the balloon. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. But something unfortunate happened after the 10th time he applied chakra to the small ball of air, making him curse his luck. Boom. After 4 hours. Don't be concerned, Gaki. You'll get the hang of it eventually. To be honest, it was a good first day. Jiraiya attempted to cheer up his blonde student, who appeared to be troubled at the time based on the expression on his face. The boy failed in all of his attempts to execute the third step correctly, just as he had predicted, but his determination impressed the Sannin to the point where he thought Naruto would actually go well with it several times. The sun had already set by 6:25 p.m., and both men were on their way back to the city's main streets to look for a nearby hotel where they could spend the night. You don't have to be so harsh on yourself. I warned you that the third step is difficult, but you nearly got it in some of your previous attempts, so don't be ashamed of yourself, Naruto. Besides, it's not like I didn't struggle with the third step. It was torture back then. I'm not sad about it, okay? Naruto responded with a loud groan. Can't we go out to eat or something? I'm starving right now. If I don't eat something within the next hour, I swear I'll unleash Kurama on this city until I do. Jiraiya shivered as a sadistic image of the Kyuubi appeared in his mind. No, Gaki, you don't have to go that far. Let's go find the closest bar around here and get something to eat. I, too, am in desperate need of a drink right now, he immediately responded, causing Naruto to sigh at his sensei's antics. The two then went to the closest bar to where they were, which was actually not far from the casino where they had been earlier. When they got inside, they were about to look for an open table when two people, specifically two women, caught Jiraiya's eye. They were sitting at the far end of the restaurant, with one girl drinking halfway through her third bottle of sake and the other girl looking at the one opposite her with concern, while also cradling a small pig in her arms. Jiraiya's eyes widened in surprise for a brief moment. Her. It's he muttered, which was picked up on by Naruto's ears. What? What exactly did you say? He asked his teacher, not hearing what he had just said. Tsunade here, he said this, causing Naruto to widen his eyes as well. Jiraiya blinked for a few seconds before rubbing his eyes, but he could still see the two women sitting on the table all the way to the other end of the bar, confirming that he had just discovered his old teammate. Yep, it's Tsunade, and from the looks of it, Shizune is still hitchhiking with her. Wait, is that Tsunade Senju? Naruto asked, pointing to the blonde-haired woman who was staring at Jiraiya. She looks like a real grandmother, no offense. He said, crossing his arms. I was expecting her to be much more attractive than that, but I think that's just how people from the Golden Age look nowadays. Now, Gaki. I'll pretend I didn't hear that, he growled, glaring at his student with such venom that Naruto raised both arms in defeat. And, by the way, I'm not yet 50. I'm 44. Second, that is Tsunade Senju, my former teammate and future Leaf Hokage. You say that about her appearance, but she was one of the hottest babes during our time, and I even tried to ask her out a few times. He then began to reminisce about the times he used to ask the Slug Princess out, which always ended disastrously for him. Anyway, my point is that you should keep your mouth shut around her. She doesn't like being bad-mouthed on, and believe me, you'll be sorry if you gossip about her behind her back. It'll end horribly for you, just like it did for me, don't you think? Naruto sighed and shrugged. That's useful to know. Let's get started, Gaki. They made their way over to the table where Shizune and Tsunade were seated, with Naruto close behind. At the same time, he was trying hard not to look at anyone else in order to avoid revealing his identity. Shizune appeared to have the keener senses, because as soon as she heard footsteps that grew louder by the second, she turned her head to look at the person, or people, who were heading their way, and her eyes widened at seeing who it was. She quickly returned her attention to Tsunade and began waving her hands in front of the slug princess. "Tsunade-sama!" she exclaimed, trying to catch her attention in any way she could. "What exactly is it now, Shizune?" Tsunade growled as he drank another round of sake from the bottle, nearly emptying it. This was her third bottle of the night, and she had plans to drink many more. Today had been a long and eventful day for her, and she needed to get rid of the stress and trauma she was experiencing. She then heard her apprentice stuttering and muttering a few words, but she couldn't hear Shizune very well because she was drunk. "Shizune, if you want me to hear you, you'll have to speak up." She then heard someone laugh after her remark, and she recognized the source of the laughter. "Are you finished running?" Jiraiya inquired of his former teammate, but Tsunade did not even raise her head to look at him. "Because we've been chasing after you two for over a week now, and we're both exhausted. You wouldn't tire out an old friend, would you, Haim?" He finished with a teasing tone of voice. Tsunade slammed the empty bottle of sake she was holding back at the table with the force of a small child. "Why are you here?" she inquired, still not looking up at him. "Have you come to talk about the good old days? Or have you come to ask me out on yet another pointless date? Come on. I know both of those options won't work because you'll only punch me out if I choose either of them." Tsunade scoffs, but the pervert remains calm in his place, while Naruto grows increasingly irritated by the woman's dismissive attitude. He had previously assumed that she was an honorable kunoichi, but it appears that he was mistaken. "Anyway, I'm not here to discuss our childhood or to go on a date. I'm here on behalf of the community. So, what do you desire? What, more specifically, does the village desire?" She spat, the alcohol having taken over her personality. Shizune was concerned for her master, not taking her gaze away from her. "First and foremost, what did Orochimaru want from you?" Shizune looked at Jiraiya in surprise as he dismissed her. When Tsunade did not respond, the pervert went on his way. "I know you met him earlier, and the ruins of the castle in this city prove it. What did he want from you, and if he did you agree to do it or not?" "Nothing," she hissed, slamming her fist on the table to express how she felt at the time. "Answer the damn question, Jiraiya," she said quietly before finally looking up to meet the man's gaze. "What brings you here, and what do you expect from me?" The older man took a deep breath before speaking solemnly. This was the end. He was about to detonate the bomb. "They want you, Tsunade Senju, to be the Godem Hokage on behalf of the villagers in the Hidden Leaf Council." Shizune gasped in fear as he heard this, while Tsunade laughed. "So Sensei really is dead." The woman trailed off, only to be cut off by Naruto's loud voice, having overheard something inappropriate said about his pseudo-grandfather. "Excuse me, but why do you believe he's dead?" As he scowled at the slug princess's figure, Naruto demanded. Tsunade continued his explanation while looking up at the boy. Jiraiya cast a knowing glance his way, but Naruto ignored him. This was the Hokage of the village she was referring to, and he wouldn't just stand there staring at their conversation as if it were nothing. "Gigi wants you to return to the village, and he personally told us to come get you from wherever you were. What gives you the impression that he's dead? Tell us," he ended on a neutral note. "So, Orochimaru lied, then," she grumbled, crossing her arms beneath her enormous bust. "What an arrogant liar." Shizune hissed, her fists clenched in rage. "What did Orochimaru tell you?" Jiraiya asked, perplexed. He was certain that his former teammate had only gone to Tsunade to ask her to heal him, but he didn't expect him to tell her any lies because it wasn't necessary at the time. "I assume it's something to make you agree with everything he says, correct?" He then waited patiently for their response as he and Naruto took their places at the empty seats around the table. Shizune and Tsunade were now sitting across from him and Naruto. When the older still did not respond, a waiter came to their table and Naruto informed him of the food they would be having for the night. The man nodded and walked away, saying he'd return with their food. He said he killed Sensei during his so-called invasion of the village, she said, but not before taking another sip from a bottle of sake she'd pulled out of nowhere. However, while doing so, he lost all of the chakra in his arms, claiming that a genin performed a powerful fuinjutsu on him, which I highly doubt. Jiraiya cast a sidelong glance at Naruto, who scoffed silently upon hearing the woman's remark. However, he then asked me to heal his arms because I was apparently the only one who could heal him. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow after that, curious about what had happened between him and Orochimaru. I was given a week to think about my response. But now that you've revealed that Sensei is still alive, it implies that he lied about killing him. Why did you choose me to be the next Hokage if he's still alive? You know that I, of all people, would refuse that position, Tsunade. Jiraiya said solemnly. Hey, you always had to focus on your research, she snidely observed. It's not just that. It includes all of the other aspects and qualities that an ideal Hokage must possess. You are the only one among Sensei's students who has the potential to lead the village in the same way that Sensei did. Jiraiya retorted, but Naruto's deep voice cut her off before Tsunade could respond. Naruto crossed his arms and looked up and down at Tsunade. Well, you're not what I expected, he said quietly. Gigi and Ero Sennin praise you, but take a look at yourself. You can't even control your desire for alcoholic beverages. Jiraiya shook his head in disappointment as the waiter who had taken their orders earlier returned with their food. Tsunade kept staring at him as he began to eat, wondering who he was and what gave him the courage to speak back to her in such a cold manner. Who is the jerk, Jiraiya? Tsunade inquired, leaning back in her chair and letting her left arm fall behind her. For a kid, he has some pretty tough words. She made a point of emphasizing the last word, playing mind games with the blonde. Jiraiya sighed and massaged his brow for a few seconds before giving in and pointing with his index finger to his student. Naruto Uzumaki is my student, Tsunade. A member of Team 7 led by Kakashi Hatake and a Konoha elite Chunin. Shizune and Tsunade both froze in their tracks when Jiraiya mentioned Shizune's name. Despite her inebriation, the Slug Princess rubbed her eyes a few times before staring at Naruto's figure with a puzzled expression. Her assistant simply stood there while she locked eyes with the boy. They had just read about a blonde kid named Naruto Uzumaki in an article of the most recent bingo book, which they had received after meeting with Orochimaru. While Tsunade dismissed the nonsense written there, Shizune was intrigued and astounded by what was written on the blonde's profile. However, the older woman claims that she will only believe Naruto had a Kekkei Genkai if she sees it with her own eyes. Tsunade smirked in her place because the Uzumaki didn't have any dojutsu that could be seen with her own eyes. So this is the fabled, celestial ninja of Konoha? Smugly asked Tsunade. I expected him to be much taller than this runt here. I read about that Uzumaki's profile in a bingo book earlier, but I didn't expect that idiot beside you, Jiraiya, to be the one everyone's been talking about. And where's your dojutsu, kid? It was mentioned in the book that you have a strange dojutsu that looks yellow or something. So tell me, where is it? That way, you can prove to the two of us that you truly defeated Orochimaru. It's not easy to be praised by one of the legendary Sannin, so keep your word. You're also the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, right? So, where is your fabled demonic chakra? I can't find anything. She tried to push him to his emotional limit in order to get something out of him, but Naruto was able to calm down. Naruto took a deep breath to calm his emotions before turning to Jiraiya with a puzzled expression. Is she the Hokage you and Gigi want, Ero Sennin? She appears to be out of it, as if she doesn't want to think about it. There's no one better, kid, Jiraiya stated emphatically, giving Naruto a serious look. Her battle skills, strength and prowess, vast medical knowledge, and legendary heritage make her the ideal candidate, Gaki. You won't find those characteristics in me or anyone else in the village. Tsunade is the most suitable candidate, as Sensei stated. Naruto groaned in annoyance as he abruptly stopped eating. Yeah, but still, he interrupted himself mid-sentence when he realized he had been ignored by his teacher. So, what's your response? Jiraiya inquired politely. Tsunade narrowed her eyes and placed the bottle she was holding at the top of the table, making Shizune concerned for her well-being. I refuse, the slug princess stated flatly and without hesitation, causing Naruto to grimace and Shizune to sigh in despair, wondering when her master's days of agony would end. She knew Tsunade was only acting this way because she didn't want to return to her home village after the deaths of two of her most important people. Despite the fact that many years have passed since the day she lost both her lover and her younger brother, she hasn't moved on because if she had, she would be back at the Leaf right now, living as a peaceful kunoichi. Unfortunately, based on her current actions, it appears that she will not be able to move on until she dies. Despite his teammates' harsh response to his question, Jiraiya remained calm. Reminds me of all the times you refused me when I asked you out, he chuckled as he crossed his arms. As he ruffled his own blonde hair, Naruto screamed in frustration. Gah! Why are we wasting our time on this granny, Ero Sennin? Let's just go tell GGG that his student declined the offer. Following his rant, the boy appeared to have lost his ability to eat, barely managing to get a spoonful of his food into his mouth. Jiraiya, your apprentice is becoming increasingly loud. Frowned Tsunade. The old pervert began to sweat nervously as he remembered what it was like when his teammate was angry. Kushina Uzumaki inherited her monstrous strength from the slug princess herself, as both of them were strong enough to take on a cage of a village by themselves if triggered or made angry. Naruto scoffed and began mockingly speaking in his own voice. At the very least, I'm not a drunken granny like you. Shizune swears she saw her master pop a vein in her head as she began to crack her knuckles in her growing rage. The young woman gulped, not wanting to be on the receiving end of whatever was going to happen to the boy. What was that? She growled lowly, causing Naruto to sweat nervously for a few moments before regaining his composure. The old pervert waved both arms, attempting to calm the growing rage and tension on their table. Be careful, both of you. Tsunade, we didn't come here to fight. He gave her a knowing look, but all she did was roll her eyes. I must also warn you that if you cooperate with Orochimaru in any way, I will have no choice but to kill you to protect the village, he said in his own cold and serious tone, which sent chills down Shizune's spine but didn't intimidate her. You are aware that our teammate is missing. I'm not sure what kind of ridiculous deal he offered you earlier, but I know it wasn't good. He took a brief glance away from her before returning his gaze to her. So I'm asking you again. Will you return as the new Hokage of the Leaf? He said it again, this time with hope in his voice. Tsunade scoffed and averted his gaze. The job of Hokage is a fool's errand. My grandfather and great-uncle attempted to end the wars in their respective eras, but the wars ended them instead. That old geezer was naive to believe he could still be Hokage at his current age. She paused for a moment to sarcastically laugh. What a joke, I'm surprised he's still alive. That was Naruto's final straw. He rose from his seat and slammed both of his palms on the table, attempting to suppress the growing rage within him. Don't you dare speak ill of being Hokage! He screamed, accusingly pointing at Tsunade. You appear to have been one through experience, but you've never accepted it. How could you possibly know what it's like? You're not the one who tried everything to keep the village safe. And how could you say that about your own teacher? I'm not sure what would have happened if I hadn't aided him against Orochimaru, so you should be thankful he's still alive, he ended with a low growl. Tsunade stood up as well, but with a large smirk on her face. And how can a jerk like you comprehend? I've seen what it's like from the old man, and he struggled mightily to protect his village. I've lived longer than you, boy, and I'd advise you to stay out of this conversation because the grown-ups are clearly speaking. You have no idea what I've been through. Are you defending the Hokage because you want to be one someday? Naruto simply replied with a scoff, confirming Tsunade's question. So you want to be one someday? Here's some advice. You have no chance of being offered the position at your current strength, and if you are, you would be a fool to accept it. Do you know why we're still talking? Naruto said sarcastically before leaning over to the woman. What do you think about taking this outside? Oh, is that a challenge, you brat? Tsunade retorted sarcastically as she leaned in closer to the boy. What are your thoughts? He paused for a few moments to observe Tsunade's expression. It's my win if I bring you down, he said quietly, only the four of them at the table hearing him. And if I win, you're going to stop talking about the Hokage position and all the people who have held it, and you're going back to the village with us, whether you like it or not. Tsunade then shrugged and crossed her arms. Sounds fair, she said, rubbing her chin, thinking of a prize to claim if she was the one who won. But if I win, you'll have to hand over your wallet, and then you and Mr. Loverboy over there, she said to Jiraiya, would leave this city immediately and never bother me again, for whatever reason. Got it? Naruto simply smiled, revealing a fierce determination beneath. You know, boy. I'm feeling a little generous today, so I'm just going to beat you up with one finger, okay? Shizune paled, knowing how powerful her master is even if she only used one finger. It doesn't matter what you'll do or use against me, he said, putting his hands in his pockets and turning around, as if heading for the door. He grabbed the glass of water next to the food he was eating earlier and drank all of the water left in it. He smirked as he placed it back on the table and turned his head to face Tsunade. I'll make it rain. Believe it, he said simply as he walked towards the exit. Jiraiya looked at Tsunade one more time after seeing his student march outside before side and followed Naruto out of the bar into the street. Tsunade burst out laughing, causing Shizune to flinch. After a few more seconds, the slug princess rose from her seat and exited through the front door, Shizune and Taunton close behind. When Jiraiya exited the building, he went straight to Naruto, who was waiting for Tsunade. While he was focused on waiting, the pervert crept up behind him and smacked him on the head, causing Naruto to yelp in pain and grab his head in pain. Ow! What was the point of that? He said, his gaze fixed on his teacher. Didn't I tell you to shut up? Jiraiya retorted, a tick mark on his brow. With what you're doing now, you're only making matters worse. Didn't I tell you to make bets with her when we got back to the village? Why did you feel compelled to commit suicide? He inquired, shaking his head in dismay. Calm down, please, Naruto said, waving his arms in front of him. Trust me on this. I know what I'm doing. You'll see for yourself, Arrow Sennin. That granny won't know what hit her, you know, because I'm too fast for her. She'll have no idea what hit her. Jiraiya's eyes widened in recognition before he began to chuckle. Fine, I'll trust you on this one, Gaki. He finally said, walking over to the side of the street as a spectator to watch his fight. Just make sure you tell them both afterwards, okay? You know they'll start asking you questions as soon as you use that technique in front of their eyes. Naruto gave a thumbs up, indicating that he knew exactly what he had to do. Tsunade and Shizune emerged from the bar a few seconds later, the latter closely following the former while holding Taunton safely in her arms. Tsunade walked over to the open space opposite Naruto, while her apprentice walked over to Jiraiya and stood beside him, observing the fight. This is your last chance to change your mind, brat. I'll be gracious, smugly, she said, placing her hands on her hips. Naruto responded by pointing his thumb to his forehead protector. As I previously stated, I don't give a damn what you try to do to me, he declared in a defiant tone. I never break my word. And I'm not going to sit here and watch you mock the Hokage. It's because becoming the Hokage is my dream. He showed his determination by looking up at the night sky with fire in his eyes. Tsunade's brows rose slightly when she heard his response, and she swears she saw her younger brother, Nawaki, standing beside the blonde Uzumaki as he spoke. She shrugged the feeling off and turned to face Naruto with a smirk. "You're a brave young man. Show me what you're made of, and I'll see if Orochimaru was right about your strength." The boy smirked as the two of them braced themselves for a fight. "As I promised, one finger." The woman then raised her right index finger, as she had previously stated. Naruto vs. Tsunade. For the first few seconds, there was no intended movement between them because Naruto was trying to observe his opponent and see if he could find any blind spots on her. Tsunade raised an eyebrow as the seconds passed, wondering why he hadn't made a move yet. She had predicted that Naruto would charge at her from the start of their fight, but that wasn't the case right now. She let her arm fall to her side, tired of holding her finger up, intending to wait for Naruto's first move. Of course, she will not succumb to frustration and attack first, because who knows what tricks the kid has in store for her. "Ready yourself," Naruto declared as he started running towards Tsunade. The Slug Princess smiled as she noticed Naruto succumbing to his inner rage. She then raised her finger again, preparing to catch the boy off guard. As the seconds passed, the blonde pulled out a kunai and drew in closer and closer. "Don't mess with a Sannin, brat," she said boldly, aiming for his forehead protector so she could remove it before hitting him on the forehead without restraints. Before she could even touch him, Naruto flashed a wide grin and activated his Uchtengan, turning his normal blue eyes yellow with an 8-pointed star in the center. Tsunade was taken aback by the sudden action, widening her eyes at the change in the child's eyes. Shizune's jaw had dropped to the ground in shock as Naruto activated his dojutsu, and she began stuttering in her place while pointing towards the blonde boy. Jiraiya closed his eyes and shook his head, laughing inside at Tsunade and her apprentice's reactions. "Well, that's exactly how I felt when I first saw the Gaki's yellow eyes," he thought to himself, recalling the time he returned to the village to check on Naruto's condition in the leaf. "Oh, I can't wait to see how things turn out after this little game. But hurry up, Gaki. It's getting late, and you wouldn't want any late-night fights around here where people live for the money." Tsunade eventually recovered from her shock and regained her focus. Unfortunately for her, Naruto was now only an inch away from striking her with the kunai in his hand, which she successfully avoided by taking a step back and reaching for his forehead protector once more. "Get lost, Konoha's Rainmaker," she mocked, her hand almost reaching for him. "Raisei, Meteor," Naruto exhaled, and as soon as he said it, time seemed to slow down around him, and a yellow light engulfed his entire body. He cast a quick glance at Jiraiya and Shizune before returning his attention to the woman in front of him. He smirked at her before flying behind her and sweeping her off her feet with his legs, immediately deactivating his meteor. Time reverted to its original state, causing Tsunade to fall to the ground after receiving a leg sweep from Naruto. Naruto began laughing loudly while she was still on the ground, causing her to glare at the boy and look up at him. "What's so funny, brat?" she asked, unable to get up at the time. "Looks like I've got this one, Ba-chan," he said, sticking his tongue out at her. Tsunade and Shizune's eyes widened in surprise, while Jiraiya chuckled as he realized he had predicted what Naruto would do. "Would you mind explaining?" Tsunade inquired, trying not to sound angry because she was perplexed at the time. How can Naruto claim victory when she wasn't even knocked out or surrendered? "I said it would be my victory if I brought you down earlier, and I did. Do you understand, Godem-sama?" With a smirk, he said. Tsunade began trying to remember their time at the bar if he had said something like that, and her apprentice did the same. When the blonde boy saw the expressions on the two women's faces, Tsunade and Shizune, he began to smile. "You said that on purpose, didn't you?" she asked, her face expressionless. Naruto simply shrugged his shoulders, trying to hold back his laughter, but failing, so he began cackling loudly. Tsunade looked over to Jiraiya and Tsunade, who appeared to be taken in by the boy's plan of action because they were both laughing along, especially Shizune. She couldn't remember the last time she saw her apprentice smile like that, which had to have been before they left the leaf. The slug princess, unable to take it in, began to laugh as well, having fallen for a simple but clever plan. The four let out the intense joy they were experiencing at the time, which lasted about a half-minute before they stopped to catch their breaths. Naruto's move was devious, and Tsunade couldn't believe she'd been duped. But who could tell? Besides, she couldn't win a damn bet to save her life, and she was apparently drunk the entire time, which seemed to wear off when she collapsed. Jiraiya approached his former teammate and extended his right arm, while Tsunade looked up at him. "You do realize you'll have to come back with us now because that's what you put on the line, don't you?" The woman snorted and paused for a moment before accepting Jiraiya's hand and pulling herself off the ground and back to her feet. "Don't remind me," she said, annoyed, but she couldn't get over the fact that she had been outwitted by a small child. She groaned loudly when she noticed Jiraiya smirking at her. "Alright, you two win. We'll go back to the village," she declared, causing Naruto to punch the air in triumph while Shizune couldn't believe her ears. For a brief moment, she believed she was dreaming. "Are you kidding, Tsunade-sama?" Shizune burst out laughing, a big smile on her face. "Pack your belongings, Shizune. We're going back to the village," she confirmed, making her apprentice squeal with delight, overjoyed that Tsunade had finally made the right decision for once in her life. "But first, there are two issues we need to address." She then turned to face Naruto, raising an eyebrow at him. "And one of those problems right now, brat, is you and your yellow eyes." Upon hearing her statement, Naruto realized he still had his Uchtengan activated, so he switched back to his normal blue ones. "Don't bother trying to hide them, brat. You've got a lot to say about yourself." She then paused for a few seconds, but Naruto did not respond. "Well? I'm standing by." After hearing her final sentence, the boy finally sighed. "Okay, I'll tell you both what the real deal is with me. But, Ba-chan, during breakfast tomorrow," he paused for a moment after that to yawn loudly while stretching his limbs and back. "Come on, Aro Senin. Let's find a place to crash. I'm really tired right now. Today's been a long day for me." Tsunade and Shizune both looked at Jiraiya, who appeared to agree with the child's request. He shrugged his shoulders and yawned as he turned his attention to the two women staring at him. "Well, I believe the kid is correct on this one." He then approached Naruto and picked him up, carrying him on his shoulder while the blonde slept peacefully. "Let's meet at the same bar early tomorrow morning. I'm also feeling bushwhacked. See you later." He then waved his arm goodbye as he drove away, looking for any nearby hotels in sight, while the two women behind him went the opposite direction, both tired. 7:18 a.m. tomorrow. Are you saying you got those eyes after almost dying at the hands of the villagers? Tsunade posed a rhetorical question. The four were still at the same bar from the night before, eating their breakfast, when Tsunade decided to get back to the original reason for their reunion. Like everyone else who has met Naruto, they were astounded to learn that there was another dojutsu besides the Sharingan and the Byakugan, and that the boy's eyes were even more unique than they could have imagined. Tsunade mentally compared his Uchtengan to the seal on her forehead, saying that both were one of a kind. Pretty much. Though I'm not sure why I bought them in the first place. He went on, with lies hidden beneath his words. Like the council, he didn't want to tell anyone, at least not yet, about the true reason for his dojutsu, as it would complicate matters. However, as soon as I got away with my life, it deactivated, and my eyes returned to their original color. Following that, there have been numerous occasions, particularly in emergency situations, when the Uchtengan spontaneously activates to assist me in resolving the problem. It wasn't until a few months ago that I figured out how to turn it on and off at will. I've been training more and more every day to improve my techniques and make it last longer during combat. And, based on the name, I'm guessing your eyes are associated with objects from another world, correct? Universe is a more general term than world, so it makes sense, don't you think? Although I'm not sure how they got behind me so quickly last night. Tsunade breathed a sigh of relief as Naruto nodded. Good to know. Because if everything the bingo books said about you is true, that means we have a chance of beating Orochimaru. She trailed off, making Jiraiya widen his eyes slightly. So I was right. He exclaimed as he locked eyes with Tsunade. You met Orochimaru. Mind telling us what you talked about, and possibly what he wanted from you? He wanted Tsunade-sama to heal his arms, Shizune explained as she entered the room. He told us that the chakra network in his arms had been destroyed and that Tsunade-sama was the only one who could heal him. Then he made her an offer. The girl asked her master for permission at first, but the latter simply nodded, indicating her approval. He told us that in exchange for healing his arms, he would resurrect both Uncle Dan and Nawaki. Jiraiya slammed both of his fists on top of the table and hung his head low as soon as he heard that. Son of a bitch. He sighed, shaking his head in dismay. Should have known he'd do something like that. And did you take that deal? He asked his teammate, not looking up at her. He gave me a week to think about it before I told him anything, she simply replied, removing some of Jiraiya's doubt and concern. If I'm correct, this must be the other problem you mentioned last night. He raised his eyes to her, and she nodded in response. So, what do you intend to do about him? You know, we could just go back to Konoha and deal with him later, because as long as he can't use his arms to weave hand signs, we're fine. No, Tsunade said, rising from her seat and looking Jiraiya in the eyes. We must take advantage of his vulnerable state now, before he does something insane in an attempt to reclaim his arms. Orochimaru, you and I both know, will not stop until he achieves his goal. The pervert said, rolling his eyes at her. We confront him at the end of the week and put an end to his schemes once and for all. As the new Hokage of the village, I must keep an eye out for potential threats and stop them before they reach the village. Good point, Jiraiya said, sighing and leaning back in his seat. So, what are your plans? I have a plan, but there's no guarantee it'll work 100% of the time, so I'll need you three to hide near the site where the Hiragizawa castle was destroyed, she said, looking at Naruto, Jiraiya, and Shizune. I can pretend to be defeated and simply agree to his terms to heal him, but in reality, I'll treat him with an advanced but dangerous medical technique. Are you sure it'll work? The pervert inquired, skeptical of his former teammate's plan. It wouldn't be surprising if she failed with her plan, given that Orochimaru is a cunning individual with a slew of dirty tricks up his sleeve. You are aware that the man is well versed in ninjutsu and other techniques, correct? Who knows if he's seen whatever technique you're going to use on him, so I say we just leave him alone or charge at him all at once. Because the technique resembles the mystical palm, he won't know what hit him because he isn't interested in medical techniques. It works by infusing poisonous chakra into a specific target's chakra system, and once there, it quickly spreads throughout the entire network, destroying it all at once. If there is no restraint, he will die in a few seconds, she smiled after her statement, pleased with her strategy, before returning to a solemn expression. But, as you said, he's smarter than he appears, so if I fail to kill him with the poisonous chakra, you're welcome to jump in and assist me. Tsunade-sama, I think we should take the fight somewhere other than the city, Shizune expressed concern. If an all-out battle breaks out between all of us, we must ensure that the citizens of this place do not become involved. And, from what I recall from the last time I saw Orochimaru fight, he's a devastating fighter. Another good point, Tsunade said, realizing her apprentice's remark. So, while fighting him and the kid who was with him the last time, we'll try to keep the fight in an open field where no one else can get involved. She then rose from her seat and began to stretch her arms. Are we all okay? We're good, exclaimed Naruto as he stood up and began walking towards the bar's door. Where are you going, Gaki? Jiraiya inquired, raising an eyebrow at his pupil and wondering where he was going so early in the morning. Training, what else? Said Naruto, returning his gaze to Jiraiya with a, "Are you serious?" expression. Besides, if we include yesterday, there are only 6 days until we fight that Orochimaru bastard again, so I need to step up my training if I want to be in top shape. I'm going to make sure he can't bother the Leaf any longer once I'm done with him. But I'll be back for lunch, so I'll see you at the hotel, Aro Senin. Later. He said this with a huge grin on his face, but before he could continue, a voice stopped him. "Wait!" exclaimed Shizune as she dashed over to him, holding Taunton in her arms. "Is there anything I can do for you, Shizune-san?" he politely inquired. "First and foremost, call me something other than Nei-chan, okay? You make me sound old, don't you?" Naruto simply nodded in response to her grumble. "Anyway, may I accompany you? I'm interested in seeing how you use your dojutsu and what it can do. Maybe you could show me if it's not too much trouble?" She responded with her own kind tone. "Sure. Just remember to keep your breath held," Naruto said with a fox-like grin. What?" she asked, puzzled, and while she was distracted, Naruto grabbed her free right hand as quickly as a cat. Shizune's eyes followed his small movement before she noticed him being obscured by bright light, causing her pupils to dilate. "Oh no," she mumbled, inhaling deeply and clutching Taunton as tightly as she could. Naruto's evil laughter and Shizune's horrified screams were the only things that remained after they flew away with the blonde's meteor. Tsunade's jaw dropped as she stood there, while Jiraiya simply smirked. She looked at her former teammate, who noticed her stare and decided to respond quickly. "No, that wasn't the Hiraishin," he clarified, assuaging her concerns. "It's his own technique, but it's also not space-time ninjutsu. It's just a ninjutsu he learned from his Uchtengan, and it's the same one he used against you last night. The technique allows him to fly at incredible speeds, and its appearance is similar to Minato's Hiraishin, but it isn't the same jutsu. I think you can figure out the differences, right?" He smirked, crossing his arms. She began to reflect on the differences between the two techniques. The Hiraishin was a teleportation technique, whereas Naruto's allows him to fly, according to Jiraiya's words, and there was a significant difference between the two words alone. As she sat back down in her chair, she began to smile as she realized what had happened. "Yes, I think I understand now. Why is he out for training in the first place? I'd say he'd already mastered the techniques of his dojutsu, so why would he still need to train? Unless, of course, he just wants to show off," she concluded sarcastically. "I wouldn't be sure about that, Haim." Jiraiya scoffed, shaking his head. "He has a lot of techniques that his eyes grant him, but he doesn't even know how to use or perform nearly half of them," he revealed, widening Tsunade's eyes. "It's true. He has a lot more to learn about his Uchtengan and its techniques, but I believe he'll need serious assistance when attempting the advanced ones. But, in any case, I doubt he'll train to improve his dojutsu because the main thing on his mind right now is mastering the Rasengan." "Wait, you taught him that technique?" Tsunade exclaimed, stunned by what she had just heard. "Yeah, I figured he'd need something else besides his space techniques. To be honest, he doesn't have any strong affinities in any element, so you could say he has none. However, this isn't entirely true because he can do low-rank wind, fire, and water jutsus that aren't a rank. Because that is one of his disadvantages in battle, his eyes are literally his most powerful weapons. Though I'm not sure how long he'll be able to keep it active, I know he's working to improve it. That's one of the reasons I chose to teach him his father's jutsu, even though he's still working on perfecting it." Tsunade's eyes widened briefly when he learned that Naruto's father was Minato Namikaze, the 4th Hokage of Konoha. "I knew I saw that kind of blonde hair somewhere. Who would have guessed he was the Yondaime's son? I'm curious why the villagers even tried to kill him back then." The slug princess shook her head, fighting back a smile that was creeping on her face. "Doesn't that brat know when to give up?" As she tried to tell the two boys apart, an image of Naruto and Nawaki appeared in her mind. "Reminds me of someone else from not long ago," Jiraiya said, looking at his teammate, who only frowned in response. Alright, Haim. I know you see it as well, so don't try to deny it. Does it really matter? She retorted, her tone uninterested. Jiraiya shook her head. Not really, he said, a small smile on his face. Just to mention it, and to be honest, the first time I saw him, I nearly did a double take because of his resemblance to Nawaki. In my opinion, he resembles your brother. So what? She asked sharply, not liking where this conversation was going. They were just talking about Naruto and his training when they noticed his resemblance to Tsunade's younger brother, Nawaki, who died when he was young. He looks a little like him, no big deal. She cried, trying to sound irritated, but in reality, she was having second thoughts and was thinking about what Jiraiya was implying. But it doesn't end there, does it? He asked, prompting Tsunade to look down at the table. He's determined, strong-willed, never gives up, has a positive outlook on life, can be quite annoying at times, and most importantly, he wants to be Hokage. You can even compare him to Nawaki from back then. The kid's a fool, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Jiraiya ignored her and continued his statement. Don't you think it's usually the fools who leave us hanging with our mouths open? Or were you not left hanging by what he did in front of you last night? Please allow me to correct that. It's meant to be behind you. Alright, I see your point. She grumbled, appearing hesitant to concede defeat. Fine, I see a little Nawaki in him, and it feels like I was just talking to my brother. Jiraiya smirked, finally eliciting the reaction he desired from her. But enough of that, let's move on to something else. The white-haired man raised an eyebrow at her, wondering what she wanted to talk about now. Could you please tell me more about the brat's eyes? It appears that everything you told me earlier was not complete, and there are still many things I don't know about. At 4:52 p.m. Naruto was sitting on a rock at the time, writing on a small piece of paper. He had spent the entire day attempting to perfect the Rasengan, but it was far more difficult than he had anticipated. For the first few hours he was out there, he first demonstrated to Shizune all of his Uchtengan techniques, which included Meteor, Rings of Saturn, and Holy Blast. When he was finished, he asked the girl who was watching him to be quiet because he needed to concentrate as hard as he could in order to correctly perform the third step in his Rasengan training. Shizune, not being one to turn down such a kind request, simply stood by and watched him go through his dreadful training. They returned for lunch at noon, and Naruto took a bath to freshen up before returning to his training, but Shizune was not with him this time. I'm not familiar with this mode of communication. How does it work? Mika asked, looking at Naruto puzzledly. Just a few minutes before, Naruto decided to write a letter to Hinata in which he stated that he was doing fine, because it would be understandable if she was worried about him after they hadn't seen each other in over a week. After that, he summoned Mika and told her that he needed her to deliver something to Hinata, which was the letter itself. To be honest, it's pretty simple, he said, shrugging his shoulders. You simply write something you want to say to someone on a piece of paper and have someone or even an animal deliver the paper to the person you want to read it to. In my case, I want to send a message to Hinata because I miss her. I'm writing this letter right now, and once it's finished, I'd like you to go to the village and deliver it to her, got it? He responded, trying not to sound irritated. It was frustrating for Naruto at times to have to explain everyday things to his partner, and it made him wonder why she was so clueless in the first place when she was such a teaser. Yes, I think it all makes sense now. Have you finished your letter yet? Naruto's face fell as he sweat dropped as she continued to ask. I don't think I'll be able to finish this if you keep asking questions like that, so if you could please be quiet for the next 5 minutes without asking anything, I'd really appreciate it, he asked innocently, making the most pleading face he could muster. Mika simply nodded, unconcerned by Naruto's actions, causing the blonde to sigh in frustration. The boy finished his letter about 2 minutes later, and he rolled the paper up when he was finished. The phoenix then flew up into the air, taking it from his palm with her feet, but she didn't leave right away when she heard Naruto's voice. You know, I think I should make you a letter holder, he suggested, looking her in the eyes. Mika cocked his brow. What exactly is that? It's a small bag that, like my backpack, can carry a letter like the one you're holding on your back. He smiled and pointed to his backpack, which was leaning against a tree. That way, you won't have to carry the letter all the way, and you can just carry it on your back to save time. The majority of messenger birds have one, and they are quite common in the ninja world. It sounds fascinating. Naruto, I'd like to have one as well. How am I going to get one? She mentioned the item that piqued her interest. Don't worry, I'll order you one. After all, you're my partner. He said, rubbing the top of her head as he heard footsteps approaching in his direction. Okay, that's enough. He said quietly, just loud enough for his partner to hear. Go ahead and deliver the letter, and then immediately return to the summon realm. I'll just summon you again when we face Orochimaru in a few days, okay? Mika gave a nod. Alright, now get moving. And with that, the phoenix took off for Konoha. Stay safe. He muttered, his gaze fixed on his partner in the distance. To whom were you speaking? Naruto screamed in terror, but when he turned around, Shizune was just standing there with 2 cups of ramen in each hand, raising an eyebrow at him. When the blonde realized it wasn't a stranger, he sighed in relief and sat on a nearby rock. No one. I was just thinking some things out loud. I didn't think anyone else was out there besides me. He rubbed his eyes after his brief statement, hoping she didn't suspect him. Why are you here, Shizune Nichan? He asked, using the name the girl had requested earlier. Well, at least I brought you this. She lifted the ramen cup she was holding in her right hand. Jiraiya-sama thought you might be hungry, and he told me your favorite food was ramen, so I made you some. She sat on the grass and handed the cup to Naruto, who mouthed a simple, thank you, before beginning to eat. So, Naruto-kun, how did your training go? Did you make any kind of progress? To her dismay, Naruto smiled and shook his head, causing her to frown slightly. She felt an immediate connection to him after he beat Tsunade at her own game, and she was eager to learn more about the boy who changed her master with a clever move. Well, I don't think you should give up, Naruto-kun. She said, smiling. I'm confident that if you keep working hard, you'll be able to master that technique. All you have to do is believe in yourself. Whoa, are you this upbeat even when Ba-chan is around? He asked, causing the girl to chuckle. You know how you're acting differently than when I first saw you yesterday. I thought you were a silent type at first, but now I think you're a normal person who just stayed silent the entire time last night because you didn't want Ba-chan to be angry at you. He concluded, sipping a sip of the delicious soup he was eating at the time. Yeah, sorry about that, she said as she rubbed the back of her neck. Tsunade-sama is a monster when she's angry, but she's even worse when she's drunk and angry. I simply did not want to be the target of 1,000 punches and kicks last night. As a result of his suppressed laughter, Naruto nearly spit out the noodles he was eating. Laugh all you want, but if you were in my shoes, you'd do the same. She gave him a knowing glance. Naruto shook his head. Okay, maybe I would if I were in your shoes at the time. I think I was lucky that she didn't know what I was going to do to her outside the bar, because if she did, she would have found a way to catch up to my speed, no matter how fast I am. He then remembered something he wanted to ask Shizune about, something he had been curious about since first seeing her in Tsunade. By the way, do you mind if I ask you a question? Remember that this is a little personal in my opinion, so you don't have to answer if you don't want to. It depends, she said, sipping some soup from her ramen cup. What do you want to inquire? For a few moments, the boy rubbed his chin in thought before remembering what he was going to ask her and starting to speak. What compelled you to leave the village and accompany Ba-chan on her minor journey? Did you place a wager against her? For a while, he tried joking around. Shizune was hurt by his joke, but she shrugged it off. That wasn't the case, she said. It had already been decided that once I became Chunin, I would become Lady Tsunade's apprentice. Her departure happened later, and it's a completely different story. I had no choice but to follow her around because I was her apprentice. Naruto nodded a couple of times. So, do you miss the village? What about your relatives and close friends? Uncle Dan was my only family, she lamented, before breaking into a warm smile. And, yes, I have friends whom I miss. If I'm not mistaken, they're still in the village. There was this one particular boy who, she was about to finish her sentence when she heard Naruto squeal like a girl. A boy? He asked, giving her a knowing look and a large smirk. Oh, I see. You liked him, right? He joked. Shizune's face turned several shades of red before she screamed in humiliation. A-A-A-I-I-I-E-E-E-E. No, that isn't it. She then hit him on the head, causing Naruto to scream in agony as a lump formed on top of his head. She finally calmed down after a few deep breaths, but the boy could still feel her hand hitting him. In any case, he was a friend. A wonderful companion. We used to play all the time, and he was always such a gentleman. He even has a nickname for me, and I remember hearing him call me by that name. She continued, overcoming her embarrassment. What did he used to call you? Naruto inquired, his interest growing. Promise not to laugh or make fun of me. She asked, accusingly pointing her finger. Naruto immediately nodded, both out of fear and curiosity. Okay, he used to mock me by calling me, Little Miss Princess. She looked at the blonde, waiting for him to break his promise and laugh at the humiliating nickname, but he didn't. Instead, he mouthed the word, why, prompting Shizune to continue speaking. He used to call me that because I was Lady Tsunade's apprentice and she was known as the Slug Princess at the time, up until now, so he made up a name just to tease me. But don't get me wrong, having a nickname was fun. He seems like a pretty fun guy to me, Naruto said, prompting Shizune to nod. So, what became of him? Is he still living in the village? So, before I left with Tsunade-sama, we made a promise to each other that no matter what happened, we would never forget each other. He even stated that if given the opportunity, he will set out to find me so that we can spend some time together and have fun again. I even begged Tsunade-sama to lend him Shodem's necklace so that I could remember him easily, but she refused. That didn't seem to bother him, and he said he'll always remember me. By the sound of my voice. She paused after that, a flush on her cheeks visible, and her voice completely changed to a sad tone. And then he was gone. One day. He was never seen again. Naruto swallowed. Is he, dead? He asked slowly, not wanting to come across as rude or offensive. No, I don't know. Maybe or maybe not. Because the last I heard, he vanished from Konoha many years ago, even before the Kyuubi attack, and no one has heard or known of his whereabouts since. But I think he's still out there. I know he is, I can feel it. Her tone and expression shifted back to happiness. Instead of smirking, Naruto smiled this time. Sounds like you have a thing for him, he stated flatly. I don't. She yelled, her face turning bright red by the second. We're just great friends, that's all. Period. In disapproval, the blonde Uzumaki shook his head and clicked his tongue. From what I see, that is not the case. Shizune puzzledly raised an eyebrow at him. I can tell from the way you're speaking that you have feelings for him. From the way you looked happy when you were talking about him, to your sad expression when you mentioned his sudden disappearance, and back to your smiling face when you realized he wasn't dead, but was simply waiting for you. Because I have a girlfriend back home, I know what it's like to love and be loved. The girl's eyes widened at what he said. Now try to be truthful to yourself. Do you have feelings for him? Shizune bit her lip, looked down at the ground in shame, and began squirming in her place. After about a half minute, she came to a halt and looked up at Naruto, defeated. Okay, then. I admit that I liked him at the time. But who could blame me? He was a gentleman, a sweetheart, and he always knew how to make me happy. It's almost as if I didn't realize I was into him. And I can still remember his face. She then averted her gaze to the side, unable to bear it and closing her eyes tightly. Naruto nodded several times. That means you're still in love with him, even though you've been separated for over a decade. I guess. Could you please stop making fun of me? I'm not sure I can take it any longer. She muttered, her gaze falling to the ground. Can you tell me what his name is? He inquired, causing Shizune to look up in surprise. Shizune blinked a few times before scratching her hair in an attempt to recall the name of the boy she had fallen for. I believe his name was. No, it wasn't that. Maybe. Wait, that's not it. What was it again? Consider. What was his name? His name. Oh, I remember now. She declared, capturing the blonde's full attention. He went by the name Kenzo.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.